We're still here. Church of the Beatitudes. Good to see you again. Come on in. I want to give you a behind-the-scene look at what we're doing when we record our worships that come out on Sunday. So come on in, come on in. I hope I don't interrupt anyone. We'll see what happens. So right now, we just started recording our scripture reading. So let's be real quiet as we go in, see what happens. If you'll notice, it looks completely different. We're going to pan real quick. A lot of the church stays the same, but now we've got this big monitor that we use so it looks like we can keep eye contact with you all the time. So I'm going to bring you up on the stage so you can see what it looks like. We'll kick Ellie out of the way. Come on in.
Do not judge so that you will be not judged.
So if you'll notice, Ellie, we've got these new lights here, which is really cool. It gives us a lot better picture. And we wanted to be by the window. So we're going to pan up and show you that the window is still here. It's waiting for you. But this is what enables us to bring everything together. We got the new trees, so it kind of gives us a better feel. But I'm going to make Ellie stop. Hey, Ellie, knock it off. Come on up.
You're going to show them what
We're going to show you what Ellie sees. So we're going to have you come over and stand right behind the lectern, and you get to see what it looks like.
See how bright it is?
It is really bright and it's really hot. So, I'm going to show you one more thing, however, and that is the recording. And I'm going to take a cut here real quick, and then I'm going to switch over so that you can see the two people that really are responsible for making this happen. So, these are the people that really make it happen. If you'll notice, we have our new control system for the cameras. It's all done on joysticks, which is really cool. And this is Ryan. Ryan, can we get you to wave at us real quick? Hey. Ryan is responsible for the image that you get to see, but he can't do it on his own because behind him is Andrea. And Andrea is the one who's responsible for the sound and the quality of sound that you get to hear. So these two individuals, thanks to your donations to Church of the Beatitudes, these are the individuals who make the product that you get to watch on this Sunday morning. So thank you so much for letting us give you this small little peek of behind the scenes. We are still anticipating the time when we'll be able to come back and worship together in this wonderful space. So again, thank you for supporting Church of the Beatitudes. Your gifts are so huge in enabling us to put out to the larger community a different way of living Christianity. Take care of yourself and stay safe. Welcome to Church of the Beatitudes Online. Every week I say that, Church of the Beatitudes. If this is the first time that you have tuned in to one of our worship services, I've immediately revealed to you what this church is about. It's built upon the morals and the principles that are found on a Sermon of the Mount, and in particular, the Beatitudes. Church of the Beatitudes doesn't mean that its members live it perfectly. We're human just like everyone else. But for our members, it's a foundation. It's a foundation upon which we try to build our lives and allow it to impact how we treat and speak to each other. And I hope that in the next 50 minutes, that you will be able to catch a glimpse of those principles that we adhere to at Beatitudes. It might be through the music, it might be through a prayer, it might be through a spoken word. So please allow yourself to become centered, to become aware of this very moment. Thank you for joining us.
Till all the jails are empty and all the bellies filled, till no one hurts or steals or lies, and no more blood is spilled. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do, till God's will is done and all things are made new. God has work for us to do.
Till age and race and gender no longer separate, till pulpit, press, and politics are free of greed and hate. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do, till God's will is done and all things are made new. God has work for us to do.
By praying through our doing
And singing though we fear, by trusting that the seed we sow will bring God's harvest near. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do, till God's will is done and all things are made new. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do. God has work for us to do, till God's will is done and all things are made new. God has work for us to do.
Make love real. A simple 3-word call to action, but when followed can be so very, very powerful. Perhaps no one knows this better than Jenny McNutt. McNutt, as she's known by her high schoolers, is a math teacher at Peoria High School. For 28 years, she has dedicated her life to making a difference in the lives of thousands of young people. I'm certain we all share a story of a teacher in our life who inspired us and encouraged us to be the best version of ourselves. I lucked out. For me, it was the same woman who is now my best friend and confidant. As a friend, Jenny has taught me much, but it's her passion for teaching that inspires me and demonstrates the Beatitudes call to action. It's a passion that is tempered by fortitude to carry the burden of bureaucracy, to meet testing standards, and face the accompanying criticism and disapproval when education is blamed for societal ills. Jenny shows great courage and even more so now, given the current climate and challenges of online learning, in her call to make love real to her students. I sat down with Jenny this past week to better understand her commitment to making love real, now that school is back in session.
So Jenny, before COVID-19, how did you connect with your students each day to make a difference or to make love real for them?
Well, I think that you just kind of put on a show, so to speak. So I think within every teacher is a good actor or actress. And so you kind of, get out your jazz hands and act excited, or hopefully when you teach math, you need to kind of bring that a little more. And so, you kind of have your standard insert joke here with this particular lesson. And it's what students don't know is that every semester it's the same joke in the same spot. And we laugh about that in the lunchroom. But they think it's new to them. And so, as long as you're getting a laugh, it kind of brings out your personality.
Yeah.
I'm not one to sit. And so I kind of just buzz around. And honestly, when teachers do kind of stop and they're taking attendance or putting a few grades in the grade book or something, oftentimes we've got one ear plugged into what they're talking about. So teachers, I think, are great eavesdroppers. And if I hear something that I can add to or connect with a kid because I overhear, I just go up and start like, I hear you're talking about this show. And sometimes it's appreciated. And sometimes they're like, who's this lady, and get out of my business. But other times they're like, oh my gosh, or if you have a free spare, like 5 minutes at the end of class, I just kind of plop up and sit in an empty seat and say, tell me about the latest thing you're doing or something like that. So it's just finding ways to connect.
But now that we're in this bubble world, what are your concerns now with teaching on a digital platform, and how are you changing the way that you make love real for students in this new environment?
First, it was a successful day if everyone could just log on and get there. So it's been a curve, and you just be like, yay, we're all here. Let's take a sigh. And attendance was taking just like 15 minutes. And so just for a kid to say here, you kind of felt like, ooh, I made this big connection with them because they were unmuting themselves and putting themselves out there. So most kids are really shy, and they'll type in the chat. There's like a streaming chat for the platform that we use, but they're not really, it is cameras off and microphones off almost exclusively 100% of the time. And so you get to know them through the chat. So as we've kind of adapted, it's like, well, what can I put in the chat that will bring out their personality? So they don't get credit for being present unless they put something in the chat, because that is the way our attendance records their presence. So they physically have to type here or check in with me later. So I try to think of like a question of the day. Today's question is, just silly little, today's question was, what animal would you be if you were an animal? And then I got to explain my answer, and then I could see it on the chat. And so I could comment on people, and it's just real quick, but in a way, it equalizes the playing field, because a student that would never say anything in class because they're introverted or shy or never want to cause attention to themselves, I don't know who's who. They might know with each other, but I don't know who's popular, who's an athlete, who's a this, like all those stereotypes for me are stripped. And all I see is the kid that typed in that he wants to be a panda. And so everybody literally is participating in a way where, in a high school setting where some kids are so self-conscious, they no longer were.
Wow.
if that makes sense. I sometimes do at the beginning of the semester, I did a big survey through Microsoft Forms, and I could very quickly gather lots of information about students. You know, on a scale of 1 to 5, what's the relationship with your parents? What's the and kids are used to rating, you know, what is the relationship with your friends? How do you feel about math? How do you feel about online school? What are your concerns that you would like me to know? And some kids said, I'm just normal. There's nothing you need to know. And other kids really, you know, dad's in jail, parents are getting divorced. This home is not my safe place. It's just lots of things. And I was able to then troubleshoot and get kids some help and some things like that.
Nice. Well, what would you say are a couple of specific things that maybe the parents and the community at large can help and students navigate this new normal? I mean, there's a lot of frustration.
I think it's probably getting better. I got my questions in advance. So this one I paid special attention to because I really thought, what would I want a parent to know? And I think that like teachers had to learn a huge amount of software in a very short amount of time. So when they are frustrated with their kid not being able to log in or access or we're 3 weeks in. And so, but I learned 5 software programs over the course of, in some cases, I was trained over the summer, but in other cases, I learned 3 software programs in 72 hours and then was expected to teach students.
Right.
So because public school districts can't train before the contract day begins, we had 4 days to cover so much stuff to get ready. And now that we're in, we're all doing better and feeling more comfortable. But I think the biggest thing is try to make our communication efficient. I am spending so much time on my phone, answering texts, emails, Zoom calls. You hear from the kid, you hear from the mom, you hear from the dad, and then you feel obligated to respond to each thing individually.
Yeah.
Whereas if we just one thing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and if parents helped students or just responded to like I mass email, these students are falling behind. And if parents just gave me like a, got it, we're working on it. But so often I don't hear anything back from the other side. And so then you're sending over and over and over again, which again is time consuming, and parents, I'm sure, are frustrated by an inbox that is filling up with math notices.
Well, you know what, Jenny, you inspire me in so many ways. And I'm so glad that you took some time from your busy schedule to reach out and tell all of us what it means to make love real. So thank you.
Thank you, friend.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the
down to the line. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me
Today's scripture comes from Genesis chapter 25, verses 7 to 11. Abraham lived 175 years. Then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, in the field Abram had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac. Here ends the reading.
This is Mirhan Nasir. From 1988 to 2006, he lived in an airport terminal in Paris. He had been traveling from Bangkok to the United Kingdom, and somewhere in the midst of his journey, he lost all of his paperwork. And he literally became trapped in this airport for 16 years. Steven Spielberg took this story and turned it into a Hollywood movie starring Tom Hanks entitled Terminal. One of the spokesmen for this airport said that airports frequently become a place between heaven and earth. For Mr. Nasir, the airport literally became his home for 16 years. Between heaven and earth, he was trapped. In the Testament of Abraham, we see a parallel to this story. A soul becomes trapped. Perhaps you've never heard of the Testament of Abraham. The Testament of Abraham is an account of Abraham's impending death. God sees Abraham as a good friend and decides to forewarn Abraham of his death. And so he chooses Michael, the supreme commander, the archangel, to make the trip down to Abraham to let him know what is coming, that he can put his affairs in order. However, when he arrives and shares this message with Abraham, Abraham says, no, thank you. I'm not going anywhere. So Michael goes back up into heaven and tells God, and God says, well, let's go plan B. Plan B is, I will give a dream to Isaac, his son. And then Isaac will come forth and he will share the dream, and you, Michael, will interpret it for Abraham. And that's exactly what happens. It is at that point that Abraham understands that God's not joking around. This is serious stuff. So Abraham again says, you know what, God, I've been alive for about 1,000 years. I'm not ready to go yet, so I will go if you grant me one favor. And Michael, the archangel, on behalf of God says, well, what is it? And Abraham says, before I die, I want one last vacation trip. I want to be able to tour the world. Michael grants Abraham his wish. He gets ready the heavenly chariot, and he and Abraham climb aboard, and they begin circulating around the world. And in the midst of their travel, Abraham notices different things that are happening on the earth. He begins to see people acting in an unrighteous way. And here he is, righteous Abraham, looking at these unrighteous acts done by these people, and Abraham becomes quite upset. Upset to the point that he actually calls on God to start destroying these individuals. Immediate and swift judgment, their death. According to the testament of Abraham, this happens 3 times when God realizes that allowing Abraham to take this vacation is not going to work out well, because more than likely Abraham's going to end up killing everyone. So God tells Michael, bring him here. So Michael turns the chariot, and they head to the east side of the world. And there they find the gate between heaven and earth. Michael and Abraham dismount from the chariot, and they watch as individuals are making this transition from the earth to the life beyond. As they come closer to the gate, Abraham noticed what's taking place. This is the judgment scene. At the gate, Abraham notices that there are angels, and they have this large book. And the book is a record of each individual's accounts of life. Every act, every word spoken is recorded in this book. And the angel is looking at all the acts that are done well and those that are done for evil. But that's not enough. This judicial system is perfect. So not only do you have the books, but you actually have the scales. And in each pan, you put the deeds that are positive, and in the other pan, you put the deeds that are negative. And then you would think that would be sufficient. It almost appears to be overkill, because what happens next is there's this testing fire that actually will look at the life of this human being and assess where they truly stand. Now, if we go back to the scale imagery, if they weigh in direction of evil, then they enter in through the wide way, which leads to perdition. If the scale, however, is tipped in the favorable direction, then they enter in through the narrow way to paradise. So Abraham is watching this, and then he notices that there's this one soul that is standing off to the side. And that soul piques Abraham's curiosity. And so he turns to Michael, and he asks Michael and says, "What's going on with this soul? It appears to be caught in the middle." And the testament of Abraham says, "And behold, the angel who held the soul in his hand brought it before the judge. And the judge told one of the angels who served him, 'Open for me his book and find for me the sins of this soul.' And when he opened the book, he found its sins and righteous deeds to be equally balanced. And he neither turned it over to the torturers nor placed it in among those who were being saved, but he set it in the middle." Here is a soul who did some things not so good and did some things that were really good. That's like the majority of us. We do things we regret, and we do those things that we are pleased of. But for this particular soul, he is literally balanced. There's enough good deeds and enough evil deeds that the scales are perfectly balanced. Abraham looks to Michael and says, well, what's going to happen now? What happens next? And again, the testament of Abraham, it says that Abraham said to the commander-in-chief, Michael, and what is still lacking to that soul in order that it might be saved? And Michael said, if it could acquire one more righteous deed more than its sins, it would be able to be saved. But now we got a problem. Remember, I mentioned earlier, this is a perfect system. They don't make mistakes. Judgment is just. And Abraham realizes that this soul will literally be caught in the middle until the final judgment of God, and who knows how far away that might be. Mr. Nasir thought he had it bad for 16 years being caught in an airport terminal. This soul literally is caught in the middle, perhaps for hundreds or thousands of years. This soul is an in-betweener. There's something about this soul, however, that impacts Abraham. And the Abraham who before was so quick to place judgment upon those who were doing wicked, this same Abraham who showed no mercy, no sympathy toward the unrighteous, begins to feel a shift within himself. And for the first time, he feels compassion for this soul. And in his compassion, he comes up with an idea. And Abraham said to the angel, what if we pray for this soul? Because there can no longer be any good deeds, there can no longer be any evil deeds. What if we just pray to God that God will show compassion for this one soul who is perfectly balanced and save him? And Michael says, okay, let's give it a try. And they begin to pray. And after their prayer, they turn, and Abraham says to Michael, where's the soul? Where's the soul which you were holding in the middle? And Michael answered him, it was saved. It was saved through your righteous prayer. And behold, a light-bearing angel took it and carried it up to paradise. And Abraham feels a great sense of relief. Now, the story ends positively for this soul, because this soul experiences God's mercy. God is willing to intervene on behalf of this one soul. However, for those who are reading the testament of Abraham, they all of a sudden realize there's a problem. Because if God was willing to do that for one soul that was caught in the balance, what if there's another soul that is also perfectly balanced? What will God do? What if there is no one to pray for that soul? What will God do? And what if there is one individual where the scales and the pans are just about balanced, but there's one righteous deed that is missing? Will God show mercy? Will Abraham or someone else pray for that soul? The story is amazing because it reminds us of this bargaining that was going on between God and Abraham when it came to Sodom and Gomorrah. And so the readers remember all of this. And then all of a sudden, in the reader's mind, something clicks. This judgment scene, which has been circumvented by God, is not created by God. It was created by Abraham. That's how Abraham sees how the world should be judged. You take all the good deeds, and you take all the evil deeds, and you see what happens, and you let it sort itself out. No judgment without justice. But in this story, Abraham realizes that doesn't work. And Abraham begins to feel compassion. And as you sense that as a reader or as a listener of this story, all of a sudden you begin to feel what Abraham felt. And you begin to realize, maybe I need to be more compassionate toward others. Maybe I need to be less judgmental toward others. Maybe I, like the God in the testament of Abraham, need to be more compassionate. Maybe I need to look at others with the eyes of God's love rather than just through my eyes of harshness and judgment. We believe that this testament was first written by a Jewish writer. But there was something about that message that clicked with the Christians also. And they took it and they preserved it. And it became a part of what we now call the Apocrypha. And I wonder the reason why this clicked for them was because they recalled the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 7. When Jesus says, "Do not judge so that you will not be judged. For by the standard you judge, you yourself will be judged. And the measure you use will be the same measure you receive." So what about this testament of Abraham for today? Right now, there is a tension that is not only within our nation, but throughout our world. This week, a 17-year-old kid from Illinois grabbed a rifle and went to Wisconsin and ended up killing 2 people. He passed judgment on those 2 people. Reminds me a lot of Abraham. He saw something and he reacted. And he acted swiftly. And he acted fatally. In the midst of the racial tension that we find in society today, we have chosen sides, many of us, between Black Lives Matter and the police officers. We are choosing sides and making judgment calls based upon those individuals who support the Democratic nominee and those who support the Republican nominee. And in our minds, we make assumptions and we make judgments upon those individuals just because of their party affiliation. People are hurting other people and passing judgment on other people based on if they are or are not wearing a mask. And as bad as it is, this is nothing new. And the testament of Abraham makes us aware of that. There's a part of our nature that wants to create this dichotomy between them and us, the righteous and the unrighteous. But this testament of Abraham reminds us of a God who is not like that. This is a God who is willing to circumvent and intervene in a perfect judicial system just to show compassion. And Abraham learns the lesson. And here we are, almost 2,000 years later, and now it is up to us to learn the lesson again. Folks, we are all struggling in life. Each of us have had experiences. From the womb to the tomb, we have had experiences that have created trauma in our lives, that have affected the psyche of who we are, and that impacts the way that we act and respond to other people. If we could recognize that at the core of us, however, is the desire to live a good life. Unlike others, I don't believe we are inherently evil. And so can we be a little bit more compassionate to each other? Can we be less swift to pass judgment on each other? At the end of the testament of Abraham, he dies because he's learned his lesson. And now it's our turn to learn the lesson of love and compassion. Amen.
So some of you may know that I am a teacher, an educator, and I have worked for the last 8 years being very diligent and intentional with my lessons with my college students and my high school students and with the students that I taught through an art camp. It was about intersectionality. And what that means in this setting is I wanted to make sure what the students were learning alongside me in the classroom is something that was applicable for them, whether it be in their other courses, whether it be with their employers, or even in their own personal life. I share all of that to say this. We are all connected to one another. The things that we learn are all connected. The things that we feel and say and the ways in which we behave is not just in a solo setting with just ourselves. But the important thing to remember is that it starts with us. It begins with us. And so for today's meditation and reflection, I want us to think a little bit more about how do we actually make love real in those moments where we struggle to understand what it means to love ourselves. And I think that breathing and resting and being in the moment is the way to start to do that. Figuring out what the breath feels like as you're breathing in and breathing out. Recognizing what your body feels like when you're watching something on television that may be alarming or comforting. What does your body and your brain feel like and think about when you hear somebody say, "I love you"? That all begins with us. And we can't even begin to make the world a different place to live in if we don't know and recognize those things within ourselves. So I encourage you to join me for a 3-minute meditation. And during this meditation, I want you, wherever you are at this moment, to find yourself in a comfortable space. And if you're in the kitchen grabbing a cup of coffee as you're listening to this, I encourage you to join me to just give yourself 3 minutes of rest. So find a comfortable spot. Wherever you are, whether it's you're laying down or sitting down, make sure your feet are flat on the floor, your shoulders back, your head held high, and your gaze just soft and light into your room. Recognize the lighting in the room, the sounds in the room, and how your body feels right now. Where are your thoughts? How do you bring them into this moment and not into the future or in the past? And as you settle in to the sights and sounds, I encourage you to breathe in deeply through your nose and exhale out your mouth. And on your next out breath, gently close your eyes. What are you hearing? Where do you feel what you feel in your body right now? Do you have a sense of lightness? A sense of tension? Just imagine that there is this ray of sunlight that is above your head. And it begins to pour down from the top of your head all the way to the tips of your toes. And in that process, it's melting away those tensions, those fears, that anxiety of the unknown. And if you're having a hard time imagining that visualization exercise, just pay attention to your breath. Know that we are connected, that the energy and the air that you breathe in nourishes every ounce of your body, and that what you exhale out gives back to the earth, to the plants, the trees, the animals, and to one another. And slowly begin to open your eyes and bring yourself back into the space. And I encourage you this week, in particular, let's just focus on this week. When you feel yourself being overwhelmed by the news that you are hearing or seeing, by the stressors that may come up with work or school or family, give yourself just 3 minutes It's okay to give back to yourself, and it's okay to put yourself first in this moment. Because the only way, or one of the only ways, we can make love real is to make sure that we give the best of ourselves. So I encourage you this week to take on that challenge. Give yourself 3 minutes, settle down. Know that the air that you breathe in supports you, and the air that you exhale out supports others. Be blessed this week and know that you are loved.
Thank you for having spent this time with us. If you're a frequent viewer, you get your frequent viewer miles. And if you are a first-time visitor, you can apply for your frequent viewer miles. Just joking. But thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And as a gift for your time, we would like to offer you a blessing. May you be blessed with a sense of serenity to not only be able to accept those things in your life that you cannot change, but may you also be blessed with serenity to truly be able to accept other people. And may you also be blessed with courage. Courage to change those things which you are able to change in your own life. However, realize you can't change another person. And may you find the courage to accept that. And then may you be blessed with the spirit of love. A spirit of love that was within you. And if you want to make a difference in another person's life, then love yourself. And then allow that love to come forth from you to make love real for another human being. Amen.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, and until we meet again, may God hold you, may God hold you, may God hold you in the palm of His hand.
Hello, Beatitudes and visitors. Say, did anyone catch the forecast? Are double digits really coming next week? Could fall actually be heading our way? Don't answer that, Tony. Remember, it's all about not judging. I've got some cool announcements that might just make you believe it. First of all, are you Beatitudes NFL fans ready for some football? Wow, I didn't take down the set. The 4th annual Beatitudes football pool for charity kicks off September 10th with the first televised game of the season between the Super Bowl champion KC Chiefs and the Texans. Last year, we had 30 participants and collected $720. Our winner, Peggy Shively, donated 100% of the proceeds to the Justice Center, which is a resource center in downtown Phoenix for homeless seniors. Mike and Nancy Klatt, Phil Johnson, and Chris Haas have organized this year's pool and need you. So get off the sidelines and help. For $20, you can buy in and participate. If you want to play, please contact one of our committee chairpersons at the email addresses that are on your screen. Second, Zoom with us. Come on, guys, I know you want to. You can join us on Sunday at 9 o'clock for Ruminate, and the topic is when QAnon infiltrates churches. You might want to go check out Pastor Tony's podcast, Between the Lines, for a preview of what that's about. Then, at 4 o'clock, our children's enrichment classes are continuing this Sunday, and they meet. and this is 1st through 6th grade. And then at 7 is our youth, which is 7th through high school. And then on Wednesday is our favorite 6 o'clock Beatitudes Boost. It's a fun gathering for those of you that have never tried. And this week, we're kicking it up a notch. We want you to prepare and bring your version of mac and cheese. And we're handing out a prize for the most creative version of that. If you need links, go to media@beatitudeschurch.org. Third, did you catch Pastor Tony's new podcast episode this week of Between the Lines 1, 2, 3? If not, you can look for it on your favorite podcast platform now, and then visit a brand new podcast Facebook page. And on that page, you can leave your thoughts, comments, and insights. And don't forget to like the page as well. And a special shout out to Charity Gleason Davis for creating our Facebook page. Thanks. Parents and kiddos, we have a new 10-week enrichment program for children and youth starting September 13th. We're calling it Care for Our Earth. Kids and youth can be the hero and use their power as they join a role-playing game as the hero of an element. They will use their heart, soul, mind, and strength to solve real environmental challenges to our earthly home. So join the team to obstruct earthly harm. Children are going to meet on the 2nd and 4th Sundays at 4 p.m. on Zoom, and this is 1st through 6th grade. And the youth will meet at 7 o'clock on the 1st and 3rd Sundays, and this is 7th through high school. Contact Danny Nordmeyer for more information. I also want to remind you, don't forget, our school supply drive for Maryland School Kids is still going on, so please contact Kathy Kim if you want to learn how to donate supplies, or you can visit our website under News and Events. Last, don't miss a special online worship on September 13th. Fearless Sunday. This is a Sunday dedicated to the openness and honesty of all things theological from the pulpit. You have 2 weeks to submit your questions that you want Pastor Tony to answer. Your questions should surround issues of Christian theology and belief. These can be based on doctrines that you find clearly true, ones you affirm with a kind of shaky faith, and ones you can't affirm at all. Questions like, what is your relationship to Jesus? Or, if you say you believe in God, what do you mean by believe? Or, how literally do you take the miracle stories of the Bible? Pastor Tony promises to do his very best to be honest and not to dodge questions. So start submitting them today at media@beatitudeschurch.org. Well, I think fall is really on the way, and we'll be here for you next week online again on Sunday. And until then, be well and share our services with your family and friends. Bye, everybody.